Hello everyone, welcome back to Relax with Animal Facts. I am Steph Wolf, and today I'm going to be learning with you about our furry, scaly, or possibly even slimy friends. In today's case, it is definitely going to be two furry friends, so this is a very special episode dedicated to all of you listeners out there, new and old, long time, and newcomers. We just passed 500 followers on Spotify, so I just wanted to show my appreciation for all of you that listen to the show and enjoy relaxing with me and learning. I absolutely love the support, and it's great to see so many people so interested in animals and passionate, I guess, about both animals and relaxing. So a big thank you to each and every one of you listening right now. Give yourselves a pat on the back, because we are growing this podcast family each and every day. And it's great because it helps this podcast reach more and more people and hopefully help them relax in the long run as well. So today's animals are the Ibex and the Camel. So both of these were suggested by Ava, who has written into the show before. I figured I'd go back and see, because sometimes you guys leave me multiple suggestions, so if I ever want some ideas or inspiration, I sometimes go back to some of the older requests just to see what they have. But if you would like to hear your animal on the podcast, make sure to email me at relaxwithanimalfacts@gmail.com. And there I respond to each and every single one of you. I love getting mail and fan mail, so don't be shy to write in. I always look forward to seeing those emails. And today's facts are going to be brought to you, well, not brought to you, but they're going to be from Live Science. So the majority of these facts are from Live Science. These two animals, I think, are so super interesting, and I'm really excited to really dig deep into them and see what makes them so special. And these animals certainly are very special. But just before we go into that, I'm just going to let you guys know that I do have an Instagram, RWAF Podcast. On that Instagram is where I post updates and things like that. So if you want to also see a tour of my old recording studio, which happened to be my closet, because everyone has to start a podcast somewhere. Well, now I actually this is the first episode I am recording with a brand new setup, a new mic setup, and these little foam sort of pads everywhere. So it's awesome. So if you want to see what that looks like, go ahead and go over to RWAF Podcast on Instagram, and on there you can get to know Steph Wolf a little bit better. So why don't we just get right into the show? So we're going to start with the camel here out of the two animals. So camels are mammals with long legs, a big lipped snout, and a humped back. So those humps are kind of the, I suppose, keystone of this species, or like its biggest or its most famous or notorious characteristics are those humped backs. And there are two types of camels. You're going to have the dromedary camel, which will only have one hump, and a Bactrian camel, which will have two. And the camel's humps, contrary to popular belief, is not water. I remember when I was growing up as a kid, everyone always said, it was water, but that is not actually correct. Camels' humps consist of stored fat, with which it can help them metabolize when food and water is scarce. So fat is incredibly dense and rich and can help them go for very, very long distances, which is why camels have always been the choice, the animal of choice when going long distances, especially with no food or water. So that's why they're I suppose very popular in the desert, riding in the desert, because they can go a long, long time. So if you thought the camel's humps consists of just like a bunch of water, it is actually fat. So that is a very awesome sort of fact there that it's something that debunked an old thought I had of camels. in addition to their humps, camels have other ways to adapt to their environment. So they are they're very specially suited to the environment in which they're in. So they have a third clear eyelid. We've seen this in other sort of marine species that we've covered on the show. And this third eyelid, it's clear and protects their eyes from the blowing sand. And 2 rows of very long eyelashes also protect their eyes. So sand up the nose can also be a problem, but not for the camel. So they can indeed shut their nostrils during sandstorms, which is super interesting. I have no idea how that works, the fact that they can close their nostrils, but I believe on the platypus episode we learned that along with many other species, that having a sort of another set of eyelids to almost act as goggles can really help a lot of animals inside the water, maybe to be able to see more clearly in murky water. But in the case of camels, this really helps not get sand in the eyes, because sand in the eyes is definitely not something I would enjoy, and the camel either, even though the camel, is one sturdy sort of animal. Regardless, sand in the eyes is never going to be pleasant. It doesn't matter if you're a camel, it doesn't matter if you're a human. So humans have used camels as a means of transport for thousands of years, and they can carry about 375 to 600 pounds, which is amazing. So for those of you that use kilograms instead, that is about 170 to 270 kilograms. So this is nothing to scoff at here. That is a ton of weight. And they will carry this, of course, on their backs, according to National Geographic. And this earned these beasts a burden of a nickname, which is ships of the desert. So as we talked about before, they have been most commonly used for these kind of long, harsh terrains because of the amount that they can carry, and other factors like that. And domestic camels, ones that aren't necessarily used to traverse such long distances, are often the main source of meat, milk, and even leather or wool products. So they can carry a very, very large amount of weight, so it absolutely makes sense why camels have been the animal of choice for so long when it comes to these sorts of environments. And camels aren't picky about what they eat, so their thick lips allow them to eat things that most other animals could not. For example, such as very thorny plants. So, for example, cacti, or I believe that's the plural for cactus. I think in the past I've watched videos of camels sort of, chewing on these cactuses or cacti, and it looks almost painful. But with the camels, they don't care. They just get right in there and they eat it. They take the risk and they just enjoy themselves. They live for the moment, I suppose, and they will even eat things that I would never ever even try, at least not with the thorns still on them. So camels, this means that they are herbivores because they do not eat meat, which is, I suppose, a good thing for us, because having these absolute these strong and adaptive sort of machines in their environment, if they ate meat, I would not want to be anywhere around them. So all I can say is that I'm very happy they prefer cactus to human beings. So filling up on water when it's available is of course going to be very important for camels. They can drink 30 gallons, which is approximately 113 liters of water in just 13 minutes. And their bodies will rehydrate faster than any other mammal, which is super, super interesting. Their anatomical structure when it comes to their urinary system, I learned when I was in school, it is absolutely incredible the difference that they have in their urinary system when compared to humans, and it allows them to stay hydrated for much longer and to get rehydrated super, super quickly. So if you want something kind of interesting to look up, there's a reason why they're able to rehydrate so quickly and drink so much water. Their urinary system, when compared to humans, is just so incredible. So if you like to get to know more of the physiological and anatomical sort of things, I'm not going to bore you too much with that, but I always encourage more research because it's we can learn so much from these guys. So of course, drinking up to 30 gallons or 113 liters, it is very important that they're able to take this amount, because if we remember, they have to traverse these distances, these very, very long distances in very dry climates. Now, if they could only drink, say, maybe 50 liters of water instead of close to 113, they could, it would provide them a bigger deal of sort of trouble, right? So having the ability to store this amount of water can help in the long run very, very greatly. So that's awesome. When there is little food and water, the camel's hump fat releases water. 9.3 grams of fat will release about 1.13 grams of water, according to research by the University of Singapore. Okay, so I see here that this is most likely why people say that the humps are filled with water. I suppose that that there is water within the fat, within the stored fat. So I see maybe where this sort of thing could have been misconstrued in the past and sort of, passed on like that. So according to this, the camel's hump can release water as well from the fat. So now that makes a lot more sense. And the two types of camels are found in different parts of the world. The dromedary camel, also called an Arabian camel, can be found in North America and the Middle East. And the Bactrian, I hope I'm saying that right, the Bactrian camel lives in Central Asia. And no matter the type, the camels are usually found in the desert, prairie, or steppe. Though many people think that camels only live in hot sort of climates, they do well in temperature ranges from about 20 degrees Fahrenheit or about minus 29 degrees Celsius to 120 degrees Fahrenheit or 49 degrees Celsius. So from 20 degrees Fahrenheit to 120 degrees Fahrenheit and 29 degrees Celsius to 49 degrees Celsius. Oh, minus, not plus. So minus 29 degrees Celsius or minus 49 degrees Celsius, which is... you could see how well they can adapt to their environments. They can do cold, they can do hot, camels are an absolute wonder, and I think that they're very good to sort of study, to understand better. I'm sure that they've studied it so much. I think I watched a documentary one time, or a YouTube video of a camel that they found in, a place they would not imagine it to be, like in a very, very cold climate. And they were wondering how in the heck can they find, or could this camel survive in these ridiculously cold temperatures when we've always thought that they've just been these, really animals that could only withstand extreme heat. But indeed, they are so interesting, which is why I'm absolutely loving that we're covering the camel right now. And camels like to stay together in groups that are called herds. So herds are, this is probably what I would have guessed that they're called. So the group is called herds, and the herds are led by one dominant male, so sort of a patriarchal system. Almost like an alpha male kind of system, very common in many species. And while there is a dominant male, many of the other males will form their own herds called a bachelor herd. So these are, very choice bachelor camels that are just looking to, I suppose, date. I would very much like a reality show where it is just, bachelor camels. I would probably prefer The Bachelor if it was replaced with camels. I would most likely, it would draw my interest then, because I'm not a big reality TV show guy, but I think that this would be, someone should definitely get on this. And camels are very social and like to greet each other by blowing in each other's faces. Wow, so that is something that I have never heard before, and right now, I'm sure, especially in our culture as humans, at this point in our history, it is most likely not a good thing to greet each other by blowing in each other's faces. So why don't we leave that to the camels, let them do their thing, and we can continue to, I suppose, right now, bumping elbows or giving props from 6 feet away. But yeah, I just thought that was super interesting. And their gestation period is about 12 to 14 months, so about as much as I would imagine, because these are very, very big guys. And a mother camel will find a private spot to have her young. And female camels usually only have about one baby, but camels will actually sometimes have twins. And baby camels are called calves, and the newborn calf is able to walk within only 30 minutes of being born, which when you compare it to human life, that is so incredibly quick, that they have this nature that they're able to really grasp onto these sorts of things this quickly. So very similar to horses, I think. Horses, I believe, also are able to walk very, very quickly, from the time that they're born. And though the calf and the mother won't rejoin the herd until around 2 weeks later, and camels become absolutely fully mature when they are about 7 years old, and the lifespan of camels are generally around 17 years or so. So now we're going to move on to some just sort of the basic facts, going through some separate facts that aren't too in-depth, sort of pop-off facts, I suppose you could say. So thanks to very thick pads of skin on their chest and knees, camels can comfortably sit in the very hot sand. I did not even think about that. That is so amazing how evolution can select for these sorts of things. That's so amazing. And camels can travel up to 40 miles per hour, which is something I did not expect. Whenever I see them in movies and things like that, they are always moving sort of, in this slower, maybe 10 kilometers per hour, much less 40. But I suppose if they have to run, they can run. And imagining these animals running at 40 miles per hour is a little bit unsettling, but I think it's amazing that they can run that fast. And if you want to meet a camel, try not to make them angry, because they can spit as a way to distract whatever they think is a threat. This, I think, is sort of a common thing among many animals, such as llamas, alpacas, animals of this nature. Spitting can be a way of defending themselves. I've seen many videos on YouTube of people at zoos and maybe provoking the animals, and of course, everyone knows what happens next. So try not to make a camel angry, I suppose, for a multitude of reasons. Some calves are born completely white and will turn brown as their adult coat comes in. So we see this very commonly where the offspring at the beginning will have a different color, a different coat, very common in birds and all kinds of different species. So of course that's to be expected. And the final fact for the camel specifically is that there are over 160 words for camel in Arabic alone. So that, I suppose, is a fact about the name camel. So now let's move on to the mighty Ibex, an animal that I've wanted to cover on the show for some time. So Ibex are wild goats that live in the mountainous regions of Europe, North Central Asia, and Northern Africa. There are 5 total species of Ibex according to the Integrated Taxonomic Information System, or ITIS, and they have long curved horns and cloven hooves. Males will have these long sorts of beards, and Ibex are related to antelopes, buffalo, bison, cattle, goats, and sheep. So I think that is just super cool. If you haven't seen pictures of them, whenever you do have time, they're very majestic looking animals, very, very interesting looking. Ibex are typically about 1 to 5.5 feet, or that's about 30 to 170 centimeters, from their hooves to withers. And the wither, in case some of you are wondering, the wither is the ridge between the shoulder blades of an animal. So it's not all the way to the top of the ears. That's not how they measure the height. It is from the hooves to that part between the shoulder blades. And ibex tend to weigh about 65 to 265 pounds, so from about 30 to 120 kilograms. So I expected them to weigh a little bit more than that. I suppose they look to be a lot more dense than they actually are. It could be due to the, I suppose their curved horns. It makes them look as if they're much larger, which I suppose could provide some kind of advantage, if they look a lot bigger than they actually are. And both male and female ibex have very long horns, which are used for territorial defense as well as sexual selection. So they will curve backward, forming a semicircle, and have knobby rings on the outer curve. And male horns may reach about 5 feet or 1.5 meters long, which is astounding. That is very, very significant. So you're talking about the entire height of the animal. It has another extra 5 feet of horns, which is just fairly amazing. And sexual selection, in case that is a new word for some of you, sexual selection is this sort of competition, but in sort of interspecies competition. So males will compete with other males in order to sort of achieve mating privileges with the females of the group or the herd, or I guess, as we'll learn what groups are called a little bit later. And sexual selection is important for a variety of reasons, but what I believe to be the main reason is mainly due to the fact that it helps animals be as sort of as viable in their environment as possible. So the males that win the competitions, they might be the strongest of the group. They might have the largest horns. Regardless, this helps the species move forward as advantageously as possible. So it's a very important thing in the animal kingdom, and something that has been studied time and time again by researchers and things like that, and rightfully so, because it's super important. And ibex are herbivores. They only eat vegetation such as shrubs, bushes, and grasses, and grazing will account for a significant part of their eating habits, but the low nutritional value of their diet means the ibex must spend much of the day eating, which is a very common thing among many herbivores, because meat is very nutrient dense for a lot of the predatory species, but for most of these grazers and whatnot that rely mostly on the grasses, it is not as nutrient dense as some other food sources. So they do have to eat for a good portion of the day, as we've seen with many other species on the podcast. And ibex will make their homes on cliffs that would be dangerous for predators. So this is definitely an adaptive trait, as is the cloven hooves that they have, because it helps them climb these sorts of dangerous terrains. And the Walia ibex can live at altitudes as high as 8,200 to 14,800 feet. That's about 2,500 to 4,500 meters in the cliffs of the Ethiopian highlands, according to the BBC. So I have seen videos of ibex before traversing these sorts of terrains, and the fact that they can maneuver them with not much trouble is not shy of amazing. It's absolutely incredible to watch. And I wonder if this is why I never heard much about poaching of ibex, just because going to these insane altitudes and these insane terrains, the ibex really gave themselves a good shot in survival as a species against some of the human hunters in the past. So good on the ibex. And the Nubian ibex has a very special way to deal with the hot, dry climates of the African and Arabian mountains. Their shiny coats will reflect sunlight and keep them cool. So very amazing sort of adaptive coats that they have, almost like they're wearing a reflective jacket of some sort. This might be somewhat similar to how many people with their cars, they'll put those reflective things in the windshield, so the seats don't get too hot, and they're able to sit comfortably after the car's been in the sun for a while. I suppose that the Ibex has this same sort of thing. I always like to relate animals to human life, because I think that it's always so interesting to do so. Relating animals to human life has something that has furthered technological processes and technological advancement. It has really fueled it, which is, I suppose, why I keep doing that, although there isn't much, I suppose, technological advancement to be done from, by making a connection from our car windshields to their shiny coats. Regardless, Steph Wolf likes to go on tangents sometimes, and that's just what the podcast is about sometimes. And ibex are social and live in groups called herds. So again, we have another herd group here. And the herds are segregated by gender, meaning males will have a herd and the females and offspring will be in another herd. That is really interesting. This is not a very common way of having a system in the animal kingdom. I don't think I've ever seen this before. And the two herds usually meet only during breeding season. So that is really cool. And the male herd is called a bachelor herd, just like the camels. Would you look at that? And sometimes males will wander without a herd, although, of course, groups is what helps them stay. It's what gives them a big advantage over predators, because not only are they high up there, but when there's a lot of them and they all have these very long horns and strong head butts, I suppose it would be much harder to go into a group of 10 to 20 members when you can just go for one. So sometimes they will wander without a herd, but generally, for many of these herbivores, having a herd is a good way of ensuring survival. And ibex males use scent to communicate with potential mates. So scent is a sense that is used very often in the animal kingdom, whether it be for territorial purposes, breeding purposes. So I think it's really cool. And the Nubian ibex males use their beards to spread a scent that draws in and excites females during the breeding season. Wow, that is very interesting. And breeding season for ibexes are called the rut, which is really an odd choice of the word, because rut to me has a negative connotation. To me, it's almost like it's like not a good time. So interesting. And during the rut, males will fight for the right to breed with the females by pushing their heads together. So, and of course, the winner will be able to court the female in a process that can take around 30 minutes. And in the animal kingdom, 30 minutes for many animals, with primate species, for example, 30 minutes is a lifetime. For some of these primates, it could take, only 15 to 30 seconds, let alone 30 minutes. So I think that's super cool. And once pregnant, the females will have a gestation period of about 147 to 180 days, and she will give birth to 1 to 3 babies called kids at a time. So that's really interesting. We see a big difference in gestation periods between the camel and the ibex, which would make sense, for me, I guess, logically, when you look at the weight difference between these two and whatnot. So 147 to 180 days is about how long females will be pregnant for. And right after birth, the kid, as it's called, is very alert and can jump around. And after 4 weeks, it is ready to join the other kids in the group. And at 4 to 6 months, a kid is weaned, and it will remain with its mother for at least a year. And females will go on to have their young at 2 to 6 years of age. And the lifespan of ibexes in the wild is pretty close to the camel. It's going to be about 17 years in the wild, of course, although I've never heard of ibexes in captivity. I'm sure maybe it exists somewhere, but I'm not exactly sure. And most wild goat species are doing well, but 2 are facing extinction. So the Nubian ibex is considered vulnerable by the International Union for Conservation of Nature because its numbers are increasing. And it is estimated that there are fewer than 10,000 mature individuals. So this, of course, is considered to be vulnerable. And according to the IUCN, the Walia ibex is actually endangered with only about 500 of their kind left. So they're fairly close to being in that that critically endangered sort of category. So, and if I was to guess why they are considered to be vulnerable, because it didn't say on Live Science or Live Science, I would probably imagine it had either something to do with habitat loss or something close to that. Although I don't know what they would be building or things necessarily at that high of an altitude and whatnot in the mountains. So I'm not sure, but it's possible. And one species, the Pyrenean ibex, was declared extinct in 2000, so about 20 years ago. However, it may not be gone forever. In 2009, Spanish biologists used frozen tissue to clone a Pyrenean ibex, which is so cool that science has progressed to this point. On the Patreon, actually, when we covered the woolly mammoth, for example, there's always been these talks of, or also the dodo that we covered, this whole thing of having a select few species in which we'd like to clone and do that cloning process. Of course, I have absolutely no idea how it works, how this sort of process occurs. It would probably be something interesting to watch a documentary on, but regardless, I think that's incredibly cool that we've come this far as a species, that we're able to clone things. Really interesting. I, of course, would rather not have to clone at all. I would be more interested in preventing the extinction of the species in the first place. That could be, through a variety of ways, whether it be conscientious sort of shopping or activism to that sort of degree, because it is such a shame to lose some of these beautiful animals in the wild, because once they're gone, they're gone, I suppose, unless we find a way to mass clone things, which sounds interesting. But I am, of course, not educated enough to speak to that. So after they cloned it, it lived for about 7 minutes only, but scientists are hopeful that this cloned ibex will pave the way for successful cloning of extinct animals. Again, I can't say too much more about it at this point, just because this probably takes a good amount of knowledge to talk about, but I am more interested in preventing the species from needing cloning in the first place. So I guess that's how I feel about that. And ibex are very nimble. So of course they need to be nimble when they're at altitudes and crazy terrain like that. So they can jump more than 6 feet in the air. That's about 1.8 meters. They can jump straight up with that height without even a running start. So they would be amazing at high jump. And this helps them climb these mountainous terrains with absolute ease. And the hooves of these ibex have very sharp edges and concave undersides that act almost like suction cups to help them grip the side of very steep, rocky cliffs. And for example, alpine ibex climb up the side of the Cingano Dam, I think that's, or Cingano Dam in the Italian Alps to lick salt and lichens from the stones. So I for sure watched a video about that, and for those of you who haven't seen that before, you can search up Italian Alps ibex, and it seems almost physically impossible for them to be able to climb as steep and dangerous terrain as they do, and what looks like with ease. And people have hunted the ibex for thousands of years. Wow, okay, so I guess I suppose I was wrong. And they provided humans with meat to eat and hide to use as clothing. So they must have had a fairly hard time hunting them, I suppose. And about 8,000 to 10,000 years ago, in Southwest Asia and in the Middle East, humans began domesticating wild goats, according to the San Diego Zoo. So I suppose ibex were indeed hunted. I guess I never heard about it. I would imagine that there would be other things that were easier, I suppose, to hunt than these guys that are able to traverse these crazy terrains and jump, 6 feet in the air. So but I suppose I was wrong, and that's what this podcast is all about. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't find anything to do with the name of the ibex that wasn't on Wikipedia, and I don't want to give anybody false information, because Wikipedia, someone can just randomly throw something in there, so not a very credible source. So there are things to do with the name only on Wikipedia, though, that I could find. So I'm not going to give you guys false facts on purpose, because I have no idea what is written there. But anyways, that is the end of the show. That is 2 animals in one. I absolutely loved doing it. So again, this was a thank you to all of you who listen to the show. I love you guys. You absolutely make doing a podcast very, very fun and enjoyable, and there's nowhere to go but up for the show. And I will have some more announcements, very, very big announcements regarding the podcast and where it's going. So if you'd like updates on that, go to Instagram and go to RWAF Podcast, and there you will find Steph Wolf. And you can follow you can follow any updates that are happening with the show, and maybe even see my personal furry friend Molly, because she does happen to be one of the biggest fans of the show, or so that's what she claims. So if you want to hear your animal on the show, make sure to send me, Steph Wolf, an email at relaxwithanimalfacts@gmail.com, and I will 100% respond to you, because I love getting emails. If there was something in the episode that you thought was incorrect, or maybe had a better way of saying, you could always write into the show and correct me. I absolutely encourage many of you who probably might even know, definitely a lot of you know more than I do with some of these things. So I always encourage you guys to write in, because I don't want to give false information either on accident. And I will clear up on the next episode if I did say something wrong, and I'll give you credit for correcting my slip up or my incorrect information. So anyways, thank you all so very much for tuning in. I loved doing this episode, and I hope all of you enjoy the next podcast episode with the next animal. Take care.